My daughter stole her sister's fiancé, then came crawling back after he left her pregnant and homeless. You raise your children to love each other. You imagine they will be best friends for life, looking after one another long after you're gone. You never think that one of them will betray the other so deeply that your entire family shatters. But that's exactly what happened to mine. It all started with Sarah's engagement. She met Brandon during her senior year of college at the University of South Carolina. He was charming, successful, the kind of man every mother secretly hopes her daughter finds. He worked in finance, already pulling in a six-figure salary by the time they got serious. Sarah was smitten. I couldn't blame her. He treated her like gold. Took her on weekend trips, bought her flowers every week, showed up for every holiday and family dinner. They got engaged after 2 years, and everything seemed perfect. The wedding planning went full speed ahead. Sarah asked her older sister, Emily, to be her maid of honor. That was when the cracks first began to show. Emily smiled when she accepted, but I could see something behind her eyes. Jealousy? Bitterness? I pushed those thoughts aside. Surely I was imagining it. Emily had always been more complicated. She struggled more with school, bounced between jobs, and never quite found her footing like Sarah did. But I never thought she would let that bitterness go this far. Before we go further, don't forget to like this story, hit subscribe, and tap the bell so you don't miss what happens next. The wedding was set for the following summer at a beautiful venue just outside Charleston. We were putting down deposits, scheduling fittings, tasting cakes. Sarah glowed with happiness. Emily, well, she showed up to all the events, but something was off. She started making snide comments. Wow, you really went all out with the dress, huh? Must be nice having a fiancé who can afford all this. Are you sure you're not rushing into this? Marriage isn't all sunshine. I pulled her aside more than once. Emily, what's going on? Nothing, Mom. I'm fine. She wasn't fine. I just didn't know how bad it was yet. The night it all came crashing down started like any other. We had gathered at my house for a family dinner, just the four of us. Sarah, Brandon, Emily, and me. Brandon was chatting about finalizing the honeymoon arrangements when Sarah excused herself to take a call. That's when I noticed Emily and Brandon exchange a glance I had never seen before, one that made my stomach drop. After dinner, Sarah stayed to help clean up while Emily and Brandon left early. When Sarah went home that night, she forgot her purse. The next morning, I drove it over to her apartment. That's when she broke down, sobbing. Mom, something's wrong. What is it? Emily and Brandon. My heart stopped. What about them? I found texts. Dozens of them. Explicit ones. They've been sleeping together for months. I stood there, frozen. The words didn't make sense in my head. Are you sure? I saw the messages. The pictures. The hotel bookings. My God. Sarah collapsed into my arms, sobbing uncontrollably. How could she do this to me? My own sister. I didn't have answers. Because nothing about this made sense. I raised these girls to love each other. To protect each other. How did we get here? We confronted Emily that night. She didn't even try to deny it. If anything, she acted smug. Look, Sarah was never right for him. Brandon and I have real chemistry. You should be happy for us. You're engaged to your sister's fiancé. I shouted. So what? People fall in love unexpectedly. It's not my fault Sarah couldn't keep him interested. The audacity. The cruelty. The absolute lack of remorse. Brandon, for his part, didn't even bother showing up to face us. He sent Sarah a pathetic text message. I'm sorry you had to find out this way. Emily and I didn't mean for it to happen, but it did. We're happy together now. Coward. The wedding, of course, was off. Sarah canceled everything. The venue, the caterer, the florist, tens of thousands of dollars gone. Deposits non-refundable. My savings, partially depleted. But none of that compared to the pain in my daughter's eyes. Mom, I can't even look at them. You don't have to, honey. You never have to see them again if you don't want to. Emily and Brandon moved in together within a month, posting happy photos online as if nothing had happened, smiling like they hadn't just burned their entire family to the ground. That was the first betrayal. But sadly, not the last. Things were about to get even worse. Much worse. I thought the worst was over after Sarah called off the wedding and cut contact with Emily. I thought that was rock bottom. I was wrong. So very wrong. 3 months later, Emily called me out of the blue. I almost didn't answer. But some foolish, hopeful part of me thought maybe she was calling to apologize. Maybe guilt had finally caught up with her. Hi, Mom, she started, her voice sickly sweet. What do you want, Emily? I have news. Unless that news is an apology, I don't want to hear it. I'm pregnant. Silence. I didn't know what to say. What could I say? Pregnant. Yes. Brandon and I are starting a family. With your sister's ex-fiancé. Mom, it's been months. We're happy now. You're disgusting. That's not fair. Fair? You slept with your sister's fiancé behind her back. And now you expect me to celebrate? She wasn't strong enough to keep him interested. I was. There it was again, that cold, entitled tone. No remorse. No accountability. Just pure selfishness. I don't want you calling me again, Emily. You're seriously not going to be part of your grandchild's life? That's not my grandchild. That's the consequence of your betrayal. I hung up, blocked her number, deleted her messages. But Emily wasn't done. Over the next few weeks, she started her campaign, one that felt designed to break me down bit by bit. Photos of her baby bump all over social media. Family members suddenly calling me, pressuring me to move on. She's your daughter, they said. Blood is thicker than water. You'll regret not being part of your grandchild's life. She destroyed her sister. She destroyed this family. I owe her nothing, I replied every time. But the hardest part wasn't Emily. It was Sarah. Watching her struggle to rebuild her life while Emily paraded around like nothing happened. Mom, she sobbed one night. She gets everything she wants. And I get nothing. She thinks she's winning, I told her. But people like that always believe short-term victories are forever. Life has a way of catching up. And catch up it did. 6 months into Emily's pregnancy, I received a call from Ethan again, my nephew, and the only extended family member who hadn't taken Emily's side. You sitting down? I am now. Brandon's cheating on Emily. You're kidding. Nope. He's been seeing some girl from his office for weeks now. People are talking. How does Emily not know? Oh, she knows. But she's in full denial mode. Doesn't want to admit her perfect little world is falling apart. I wasn't even surprised. Men like Brandon don't change. They don't magically become faithful after cheating once. 2 months later, everything exploded. Brandon left Emily, packed his bags, and moved out while she was 8 months pregnant. Left her with bills she couldn't afford, a mortgage she couldn't pay, and no savings. Turns out, he'd been funneling money into private accounts for months. Preparing for this, Emily called me again, desperate this time. Mom, please. I need your help. You need money? Yes. The mortgage. The bills. I can't do this alone. You made your bed, Emily. Now you get to lie in it. I was wrong, okay? I admit it. But please, don't let your grandchild suffer because of my mistakes. My grandchild? The one you conceived with your sister's fiancé? Mom, please. No. You destroyed this family once. You don't get to pull me into your chaos again. How can you be so cold? Because you taught me how. I hung up. Again. Blocked her number. Again. Sarah, of course, saw everything unfold from a distance. And though it gave her no joy, there was a quiet sense of justice in seeing karma finally do what we couldn't. I never wanted her to suffer, Mom, Sarah said softly. I just wanted her to know what it feels like to be betrayed. She does now, I whispered. Trust me, she does. But even then, I knew Emily wasn't finished. When people like her lose control, they get dangerous. And her next move would prove just how far she was willing to sink. After Brandon abandoned her, Emily's world collapsed faster than anyone expected. The perfect life she tried to steal had completely unraveled. And still, she couldn't accept that it was over. Instead of taking responsibility, she doubled down on her self-pity and entitlement. A few weeks after I refused to give her financial help, she started reaching out to other family members. Grandma will help me, she told me once. She won't let her great-grandchild suffer. She was wrong. Even my mother, who had always been too forgiving, finally reached her breaking point. Emily, you made choices. You hurt your sister. You hurt your mother. You need to face this on your own. That's when Emily truly spiraled. She sold off anything she could. Jewelry, furniture, even baby gifts she had received from her own friends. But none of it was enough. Not with the mortgage piling up. Not with Brandon refusing to give her a cent, despite her carrying his child. And that's when Emily did something I never thought she would actually have the nerve to do. She stole from me. I first noticed something wrong when I logged into my bank account one morning. A $3,000 charge had cleared to a vendor I didn't recognize. Then another $1,200 a few days later. More charges trickled in. I sat there staring at the screen, my stomach turning. I hadn't made any of these purchases. But someone was draining my account like it was their own personal safety net. I immediately called the bank. After hours on the phone, they traced the purchases back to an online vendor account, registered in my name, but with an email address I didn't recognize. That email address? It was one Emily had used years ago when she still lived at home. I froze. My own daughter had hacked into my finances. She was stealing from me. Not just emotionally now, but financially. I called her immediately. She answered on the second ring, as if she was expecting the call. Emily. Hi, Mom. Don't, hi, Mom, me. We need to talk. About what? You know exactly what. The money. Silence. Emily, how could you? Mom, I didn't have a choice. You always had a choice. You just never liked the ones that didn't involve stealing or lying. I needed help. And instead of asking, you stole from your own mother? I knew you'd say no. Because you never learn. I could barely breathe. I was so angry. I should press charges, I hissed. You wouldn't. Don't test me. Mom, please. Think of the baby. I am thinking of the baby. That's why I'm hanging up before I say something I can't take back. I ended the call. Immediately contacted my attorney. Locked down every account. Filed a police report. Froze my credit. Changed every password. Emily thought I wouldn't go through with it. That I'd eventually fold. But this time, there was no forgiveness left in me. I refused to let her sink me into her chaos any longer. The police began their investigation quickly. They subpoenaed the vendor accounts, confirmed her IP address, her login history, the stolen funds. When she was served with the official notice, she finally realized she was in real trouble. Not family trouble, not emotional drama, but legal consequences she couldn't charm or manipulate her way out of. She called me one last time, sobbing, begging, pleading. Please, Mom, please drop the charges. I'll pay you back. I swear. With what, Emily? You don't have anything. Don't let my baby grow up with a mother in jail. You should have thought about your baby before you started stealing. You're heartless. No, Emily. I'm finally done being your doormat. I hung up, blocked her again, and let the legal system take it from there. Sarah stood by my side through every court date, every deposition, every hearing. Watching her sister self-destruct was painful, but necessary. Do you think she'll ever learn? Sarah asked me one night after a hearing. Honestly? No. People like Emily never learn until there's nothing left to lose. She's almost there. Almost, I agreed. And we were right. Because Emily wasn't finished. Not yet. Her final act of desperation would be her most shameful and her last shot at taking us all down with her. The police investigation moved faster than anyone expected. When they finally arrested Emily, reality hit her hard for the first time in her life. The smugness, the arrogance, the entitlement, all of it vanished the moment those handcuffs clicked. The charges were serious: identity theft, fraud, wire fraud, unauthorized access to financial accounts. Each one carried real consequences, real jail time. When she was released on bail, her attorney reached out to mine, trying to negotiate some sort of deal. She's willing to plead guilty if we drop the jail time. She's willing? I laughed bitterly. She doesn't get to be willing anymore. Think of the baby, her attorney said softly. I have. For 2 years. While she was busy destroying her sister's life, stealing from me, and lying to everyone. She's scared. He tried one last time. Good, I replied. She should be. As the court date approached, the pressure from extended family ramped up again. Cousins, aunts, old friends, people who had no idea what truly happened. You don't want to see your daughter in jail. She's still your child. Families forgive. I ignored them all. Because this wasn't about vengeance anymore. It was about finally forcing Emily to face something she had escaped her entire life: accountability. The day of the trial arrived. I sat next to Sarah in that cold courtroom, my stomach a tight knot but my head crystal clear. This was necessary. This was justice. Emily walked in looking like a ghost of herself. Pale, thin, her once perfectly done hair now tied back sloppily. Even her expensive designer clothes couldn't hide how broken she was becoming. She couldn't even look at us. Couldn't meet my eyes. Couldn't face Sarah at all. The prosecution laid everything bare. Every unauthorized transaction. Every fabricated email account. Every attempt to cover her tracks. They even played some of the recorded phone calls she had made to me. The threats, the guilt trips, the begging. The jury listened stone-faced. There was no sympathy left for her. Her defense attorney tried to paint her as desperate. A struggling single mother. A woman abandoned by her fiancé. Pressured by financial instability. He even tried to blame Brandon for leading her down a path of bad decisions. But nothing could hide the truth. Emily had made her choices long before Brandon ever left. She had chosen betrayal over loyalty, greed over family, and selfishness over love. The most painful part came when Sarah was called to testify. She walked up to the stand with quiet strength. Her voice steady but full of hurt. She was my sister, Sarah said. My best friend. And she destroyed me. She didn't just steal my fiancé, she humiliated me. Then she stole from our mother when she was most vulnerable. And even now, she refuses to take responsibility. The courtroom was silent. Even Emily cried as Sarah spoke. But they weren't tears of remorse. They were tears of self-pity. Tears for herself, not for what she had done. When the verdict finally came, it wasn't surprising. Guilty. On all counts. Her sentencing hearing was scheduled for a month later. The judge allowed her to stay out on bail until then, a final act of mercy I wouldn't have granted. During that month, Emily tried one last desperate move. A letter. Delivered to my home directly. Mom, I know I've made mistakes, but please don't let them take my baby away from me. Please don't let my child grow up without a mother. You're all I have left. I'm begging you. I need you. For a brief moment, I hesitated. The part of me that raised her, that held her as a newborn, flickered, but it died as quickly as it appeared. Because her words weren't about real change. They were about manipulation. Again, I never replied. I didn't show up to her sentencing. I didn't need to see the end. Sarah and I were already free. Emily was sentenced to 18 months in state prison. Her parental rights were suspended. The child placed temporarily with foster care while a long-term plan was arranged. She lost everything. Her freedom, her child, her dignity, her family. Sarah and I sat together the night we got the final court notice. We didn't cry. We didn't cheer. We just sat quietly, finally breathing freely. Do you think she'll ever change? Sarah asked. I honestly don't know, I replied. But I know one thing. We're finally done living in her shadow. But even as the legal chapter closed, there was still one more piece left to face. The aftermath. The permanent scar Emily left behind. And the long, slow road of rebuilding that came after. You would think that after Emily was sentenced, life would snap back to normal. That somehow, the storm she brought into our lives would just fade, and peace would settle in again. But the truth is, damage like that leaves permanent scars. Even when the storm passes, you're left picking up pieces you never expected to lose. Sarah was the one who struggled most in the months that followed. Not because she missed Emily, but because she mourned what Emily had taken from her. Her wedding, her trust, her sense of safety within our own family. There were nights she sat on my couch, quiet tears rolling down her cheeks. It's not just about Brandon, Mom, she whispered once. I could have survived losing him, but losing my sister. That's a hole I don't know how to fill. You don't have to fill it, honey. Some holes aren't meant to be patched. They serve as reminders. Reminders of what? Of what you survived. Of what you'll never tolerate again. Sarah eventually started therapy, something I gently encouraged. It helped. Not right away. But over time. She slowly started dating again, cautiously at first. And when she eventually met Ben, a kind, patient man, I saw a flicker of something in her I hadn't seen in years. Hope. He doesn't push, Mom, she smiled. He just listens. And for once, I don't feel like I'm competing for attention or affection. Watching Sarah rebuild herself brick by brick was painful, but beautiful. Because she wasn't just healing from heartbreak. She was healing from betrayal most people couldn't imagine. The kind that comes from blood. The kind that cuts deepest. As for me, I focused on protecting what remained of our small, fractured family. I sold my house in Charleston. Too many memories haunted those walls. The dining room where Emily and Brandon once laughed over dinner as if nothing was wrong. The living room where Sarah sobbed the night she discovered the affair. The kitchen where Emily smirked and justified her betrayal. I left it behind. Bought a smaller home near Sarah. Simpler. Cleaner. Peaceful. Some family members never forgave me for pressing charges against Emily. They called me heartless. Cold. Unforgiving. She's your daughter. They would scold. She was my daughter. I always corrected. But she's the one who chose to stop being my family. I learned that blood loyalty is the most dangerous myth we're sold growing up. It convinces victims to stay silent, to forgive the unforgivable, to sacrifice their own well-being for the illusion of unity. I was done with illusions. A year after Emily's sentencing, Sarah married Ben. The wedding was small, intimate, no grand spectacle, no extended relatives, just the people who had stood by her side through everything. I watched her walk down that aisle and felt something I hadn't felt since before this entire nightmare began. Pride. Not because she found a husband, but because she rebuilt herself from ashes and still chose to believe in love again. After the ceremony, she pulled me aside. Thank you, Mom. For what? For never abandoning me. For believing me. For protecting me. I hugged her tightly, barely holding back tears. You're stronger than you know, honey. You always have been. And now, you're free. We were both free. Finally. But even in freedom, echoes of Emily remained. Her child, my grandchild, was placed into long-term care with foster parents who later adopted him. I was offered visitation rights, but I declined. Not because I didn't care for the child, but because I refused to let Emily's choices bleed into the next generation of my life. Some wounds heal best when you don't keep reopening them. And seeing that child would have been a constant reminder of everything we lost, of everything Emily destroyed. Occasionally, I heard whispers about her. Through cousins, through community gossip. She served her sentence, got out, tried to rebuild, failed, again and again. Jobs lost, relationships ruined, credit destroyed. Her name became a warning more than a person. I never spoke to her again. Not once. Not even when she tried, years later, to send apology letters that were more about her pain than real accountability. I was young. I made mistakes. I didn't mean to lose everything. Please give me another chance. I never responded, because this was the final truth I accepted. Forgiveness isn't always necessary. Closure doesn't always require reconciliation. And sometimes, the greatest act of love you can give yourself is walking away and never looking back. There's something nobody tells you about surviving betrayal, especially when that betrayal comes from your own child. You don't get your old life back. You don't get your family back. You don't even get full healing. What you get is freedom, but freedom that comes at a cost. It took me years to fully understand that. For a long time, I kept waiting for the moment when I would wake up and feel whole again. The moment when the pain would completely disappear. But it never did. The pain dulled. The edges softened. But the scar remained. And that scar became part of me, not as a wound, but as proof. Proof that I survived. Proof that I finally stopped sacrificing myself to people who never deserved my love to begin with. Sarah thrived. Her marriage with Ben was solid, built on honesty and respect. They welcomed a beautiful daughter, my granddaughter, 2 years later. When I held that child in my arms for the first time, I felt something new, something pure. This was family, real family, uncomplicated, untouched by betrayal. Ben often told me, "You raised one hell of a woman." No, I'd always reply, "She raised herself after surviving hell." We built new traditions, new holidays, new memories that had nothing to do with the past. No empty chairs at the table reserved for people who chose themselves over us. No lingering ghosts of the family we used to be. Just peace. Occasionally, when strangers ask me how many children I have, I hesitate for half a second. Technically, I had 2, but I only claim one. The one who stayed. The one who fought for our family instead of tearing it apart. One daughter, I always say. She's my everything. Over the years, Emily faded into nothing more than a chapter one rarely visited. Her face no longer haunted me. Her voice no longer echoed in my mind. Her absence no longer left a hole, because I stopped waiting for her to fill it. But every now and then, in quiet moments, I would reflect on how easily it could have gone differently. If I had caved. If I had forgiven too soon. If I had allowed guilt to dictate my boundaries. I would have lost everything. That's the trap so many parents fall into. Believing that unconditional love means tolerating anything, forgiving everything, sacrificing endlessly. But unconditional love is not the same as unconditional self-destruction. At some point, you must choose yourself, or you'll have nothing left to give anyone. Sarah once asked me, years later, as we sat sipping coffee on my porch, "Do you think Emily ever loved us, Mom?" I didn't answer right away. I thought about it. Really thought about it. I think she loved what we gave her. But real love? Real love requires sacrifice. And she only knew how to take. Sarah nodded quietly. No bitterness. Just acceptance. "I'm glad you let her go," she whispered. Me too. Letting go was the hardest thing I've ever done. Harder than pressing charges. Harder than cutting off contact. Harder than watching her fall apart. Because letting go meant accepting that some people, even your own blood, are simply not meant to be in your life. No matter how badly you wish it were different. But once you let go, once you finally release the weight of trying to save people who don't want saving, that's when freedom truly begins. Not a perfect life, not a painless one, but a peaceful one. Now, every time I sit at our family table with Sarah, Ben, and my granddaughter, I see the life we rebuilt. Stronger, simpler, safe. And every quiet moment of peace is a reminder, sometimes, you don't lose your family. You simply find out who is worth keeping. If this story touched you, share it with someone who needs to hear it too.